Well, it's official. I have a Nintendo Switch 2. And I need to talk about it. Now, to anybody who's aware of my previous video and might be saying, that's a little hypocritical of you, well, I just want to quickly get out of the way. I pre-ordered my Nintendo Switch 2 when pre-orders first opened, and by the time I realized that I didn't want any part of what Nintendo's trying to do, I wasn't able to cancel my pre-order in time. I should clarify, I'm in Canada. I don't know how it works for you guys in the States, or even one person commented that they were from Australia. But in my experience, if you pre-order something, by the time they send it to the store, it's too late to cancel it. Especially if you paid for it fully in cash, which I always do. And for my American friends watching this who aren't familiar with Canadian currency, this console cost me nearly $900 of Canadian money to get. And as you can imagine, stores aren't exactly eager to refund you that amount of money for anything. That said, I have this now, it's in my house, and I want to preface everything I'm saying by telling you to take a look around you and really absorb in the fact I am a Nintendo fan. I will glob praise onto nearly everything this company has made in the past, and while I don't love the direction that they're going with things, I will tell you straight up, I went into this wanting to like it. I mean, for that amount of money, of course I want to like it. But, you know, the Switch 2, the new Mario Kart game, I really did at least want to enjoy my experience with it. And putting aside any kind of preconceived notion or anything to do with how I feel about Nintendo as a company, I'm just going to tell you what my experience was like and what I think of this console. And let's start by the very first thing you notice with a new console. How does it feel? Bad. I do not love the way this thing feels in my hands. Let me start by talking about these new Switch 2 Joy-Cons. Now, the electromagnetism thing works decently well. I'm not sure how that's going to age exactly, but at the moment it seems to be working fine. These things are not comfortable to hold. Let me tell you why. First of all, they're too long. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the Switch 2 is a little bit bigger than the Switch 1. Now, the way you would naturally hold any video game controller is that your fingers are going to wrap around the top so you can press the shoulder buttons and the triggers. But because these are so lanky and long, doing that is not comfortable at all. It feels like I have to really stretch my fingers to get up there, and then in doing that, you see, the Joy-Con like slides downwards like this. I feel like I can't get a comfortable grip on these things. But on the topic of grip, of course you also get one of these included with the package. Now, the Switch 1 had something like this as well, and on the Switch 1 it felt great. Let me tell you, I'm not exactly the hugest fan of Joy-Cons, but that's mainly because of the technical issues they develop over time. As far as the actual design of the things, I think they feel great to hold, and in the little grip they feel just as good as a normal controller. But that is not at all the case with the Nintendo Switch 2 one. So you connect these on the sides like this, right? And then you basically have it like this. It's a lot thinner than you would expect. A lot thinner than the Switch 1 one was. Now, when you have a normal video game controller, I'll use this generic Pro controller I got for my Switch 1 as an example. You see, it's very horizontally long and vertically it's pretty short, but it's got these big thighs that you can sort of wrap your hands around and hold it very comfortably like this, right? Compare that with the Switch 2 Joy-Cons in the grip. It's the opposite. It's longer vertically than it is horizontally, and you can really tell when you're holding it. It definitely feels more comfortable this way than holding the Joy-Cons individually, but it's still got a lot of problems. The main one being that my hands just don't wrap around this in any kind of natural way. It feels like either I have to squish them up together and really cramp my hands to get a grip on this thing, or try to hold them the way I would any other controller, which results in my pinky and my ring finger just kind of holding them, and then the rest is just floating on a wing and prayer. Like, you see, the edge of the little thighs here doesn't even touch the wall of my hand. Compare that to a normal controller, where my entire hands just wrap around it, smooth as butter. It feels great. I would not want to be playing with a controller like this for a long period of time. It would very quickly get pretty stiff. Now, the only comfortable way of holding these Joy-Cons is by themselves on their sides like this. I will give Nintendo that. They greatly improved the single Joy-Con on its side experience. This is actually pretty okay. But who cares? This is something that's really only applicable to multiplayer games, and specific multiplayer games at that. Nobody wants to play their games actually like this all the time. And finally, let's talk about the entire Switch as one big unit in handheld mode. While nowadays I mostly play my Switch 1 on TV mode, when I first got it, I was in high school, so I was moving around a lot all the time, and I actually used it in handheld mode a lot more often than I did connected to any kind of TV. And I imagine that for a lot of people, the handheld mode is going to be the make or break. Honestly, it also doesn't feel very good. It's not terrible by any means. The biggest problem is that this thing is heavy. Obviously, you can't tell that by looking at it on camera. But this is not a light machine. It's definitely heavy enough that after playing it enough, it's going to start to feel like work. I'm willing to guarantee that most play sessions which start as a handheld play session are going to end as a tabletop play session. Which, to be fair, the kickstand is very, very good, but I'm also willing to bet that this kickstand is going to get really loose over time and eventually become unusable. The screen is nice. I have to admit I do kind of like how big it is, but definitely not worth it for how uncomfortable the controls are. Again, because of how big it is. Oh, and in case this even needs to be said, you can forget about this thing being portable in the conventional sense. Yes, there we go. Now I can take my gaming with me. It's so big in a pocket, I mean, it technically can fit there, but it actively restricts my leg movement. I feel like an action figure. I did get a chance to try out the mouse controls. As I'm sure many of you are aware, these controllers can be put on their side like this, used as a mouse, or at least that's the idea. I was not able to get this to work on any flat surface other than an actual mouse pad, which is really, really weird, because you'd think for a video game console where most people are going to be sitting on a couch, or especially a portable console where people might be wherever, you'd want to make something that can really detect any surface so that you could, I don't know, run it along your lap or your pants or your couch or whatever it is that you happen to have available to you. In fact, most laser mouses that I've used in my lifetime can be used on just about any surface. I used to use a wireless mouse a lot for my laptop when I was like 13 or 14, and I used to just run that along my bed or along my pants and it would work fine. That's not at all the case with this. It's kind of surreal using a mouse with a video game console. There's no way to scroll other than the joystick, which isn't nearly as good as a real scroll wheel. Years ago, Nintendo patented some sort of scrolling shoulder button thing, which I really think they should have gone with, because that would have been a lot better than using the joystick to do scrolling. I also don't see why they didn't, I don't know, make this shoulder button like a trackpad or something. You know, like the kind that's on a computer or the kind that's on an old phone like this. That could have worked, and I don't see why it wouldn't be possible, but nope. It's not a feature, so I don't really know. My friend Colin is a PC gamer. He plays a lot of games that make heavy mouse use, and he said that this would not be comfortable for him after a long period of time. So, yeah, his opinion is probably a lot more valuable than mine on this one. I don't really play mouse games that often. But enough about the physical form factor. How about the actual software on this thing? Get ready for a lot of disappointment. It's just a Switch 1. It's just a Switch 1. The UI is identical. You know that feeling that you get, that sort of excitement feeling when you get a new piece of technology? You're not going to get that feeling with this thing, because it is so incredibly just the same as a Switch 1 that it barely even feels like it's a new thing. In fact, it doesn't really feel like it's a new thing. Still the same uninspired UI, still the same blank black and white themes. The sounds are a little different. That's pretty much it. You want to know what really got my blood boiling? One of the most common criticisms about the Switch 1 UI that everybody agreed on was that the lack of menu music made it feel really soulless. I think that just about everyone would have liked to see some menu music on the Switch 2. So when you turn the Switch 2 on, there's some really nice menu music that plays while you set up your console. And then it stops when you get to the home menu. They made menu music for the console setup, but not for the actual console. Why? That almost feels like intentional taunting at that point. I mean, what's the point of that? Now, for what it's worth, I was able to turn it on without connecting it to the internet. When I tried to put in the one game I got with it, which is Mario Kart World in, at first it just refused to read the cartridge. So I tried rebooting the thing, and when it turned back on, it said it needed to install an update to play the game. But the update was on the cartridge. I didn't have to connect to the internet. Now, that's actually pretty cool. I wouldn't mind if that was the case with everything. My main issue is with the logistics of preservation for this kind of stuff, so if the update's on the cartridge and you don't have to connect to the internet, I don't really care. But hold your horses. You do have to connect to the internet if you want to play Switch 1 games. This console advertises Switch 1 backwards compatibility as a big part of its feature set. Well, Switch 1 backwards compatibility on this thing is terrible. You have to install an online update for pretty much every individual Switch 1 game that you want to play on it. What's the point then? Most of the games, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for example, go figure, won't even let you turn the software on or play the game until you connect to the internet and install an update. And even the few games that will allow you to turn your game on and play it will forever display one of these annoying little black bars underneath it as a constant down-your-throat reminder, hey, you better connect to the internet, you better update this game. So naggy, it really feels like they just want to annoy you to the point where you're forced to connect to the internet. And hey, I have my problem with the internet stuff in general, as you'd know if you watched my previous video, but for a console that insists so heavily on being practically unusable unless it's connected to the internet, you'd think it would at least have a decent Wi-Fi chip in it. This console cannot connect to my Wi-Fi from this room that we're in right now. I have to go to the end of my kitchen for this thing to connect to my Wi-Fi. Now let me put into perspective how pathetic that is. My PC, which I'm recording this video on right now, my laptop from 2008, my Nintendo 3DS, my Nintendo Wii U, my Nintendo Wii, which is 20 years old by the way. All of those connect to my Wi-Fi just fine from this room. All of those devices connect to my Wi-Fi at high strength, in fact, from this room. But the brand new Nintendo Switch 2 can't. That is pathetic. That just feels so beyond cheap and ridiculous, I can't even wrap my head around it, and especially for a console that is so insistent on you being always connected. Like, really? You're gonna make a console that practically demands you have it connected to the internet at all times, and not even put decent internet hardware inside of it? Which is 10 times more pathetic when you consider the price of the thing. And finally, I'm gonna have a little segment where I talk about Mario Kart World, the one game I bought with my Nintendo Switch 2, the big system seller. I made very clear when I placed my pre-order for the Switch 2 that I wanted the game physically and not the bundle that comes with a digital copy. And so, I have Mario Kart World, and I have some stuff to say about it. Now, this is pretty much the only new Nintendo game that comes out with this new Nintendo system. In fact, every other launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2 is just a re-release of an existing game, either by a third party or by Nintendo themselves. Which, for the record, can I just say, the fact that Breath of the Wild, again, is one of the launch titles for this thing just feels so desperate. Like, imagine it being 2025, and one of your big system seller showstoppers as a first-party title is a Wii U game at nearly $100, or if you're Canadian like me, more than $100, whose only new feature is connecting to some mobile app that nobody wants. Because that's a whole other rant I could go on about. Nobody wants to install an app and have to use it to do something else, especially not to play a Nintendo game. You'd think they would have learned that after the whole Nintendo Switch Online app chat fiasco. Look at this. Look at this. I technically have two Nintendo Switch 2 launch titles, and that is really sad. This cost me $19, by the way. And I can go to GameStop right now and buy the exact same game for more than $100, just because it's on the Switch 2. Not very impressive. But Mario Kart World, alright? I'm all about the bing bing wahoos. Take a look around you. I love Mario. When the Mario movie came out, I saw it in theaters 8 times. That should give you an idea of just how loyal to Mario I am. In fact, if I'm being honest, Mario is the only Nintendo franchise that I'm, like, really properly into. I liked Wii Sports and whatnot. I never really got into Zelda or Metroid or Kirby or any of the other ones. I really just like Mario. This game was a huge letdown for me. And I want to say right off the bat, I had really high hopes for it. When it was first announced and whatnot, people were already making videos that said, this looks boring, this looks bland, is this even gonna be fun? And I thought those were clickbaity. I saw them and I rolled my eyes. I thought, you know what, give Mario Kart World a chance. I thought the trailer looked great. I thought it looked like they had a ton of great ideas that they were gonna expand on the gameplay a ton, and it was gonna be wonderful. This is such a letdown to me. This game, where do I even start? Let's just start with the typical racing. It's fine. It's okay. It's not as good as an 8 Deluxe. I don't know. All of the items are completely nerfed. The track design is It just is. It's okay. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing bad about it. It's all right. I like the idea of the world and driving to the new tracks. I had the idea in my head that the whole thing about the world being interconnected was going to be that you could do a Grand Prix and it would be like completely uninterrupted. You know, there'd be no loading screen, no transition. You just like drive and drive and drive and drive and drive until everything was over. I thought that was the big new feature. Apparently I was wrong. It doesn't work like that at all. You can drive from one track to another track, but it's for like one lap at the end of your race, and then, you know, there's a loading screen and a transition between everything else. In fact, there's a loading screen and a transition between that and then the drive between them. After Bowser's Fury, which I adored by the way, I really thought that Nintendo was doubling down on the whole let's just have one big interconnected area thing. By the way, let's talk about free roam. Let's just get it all out on the table right now because that's this game's big new feature, right? And for reference, this is the first new Mario Kart game since Mario Kart 8, which released 10 years ago. It has been so long that everyone's been waiting for a new Mario Kart to come out and to push the series forward. And this is the big new feature it has, this free roam. First of all, there's no split-screen multiplayer in free roam. What? How pathetic is that for a game that is inarguably centered around multiplayer? Because let's be honest, Mario Kart is a multiplayer franchise. That's pretty much the point. You can play Mario Kart by yourself, and you can get entertainment out of it, but it's a game that is meant to be played together. And your big new entry in that series has a big new mode that's the main point that doesn't allow for split-screen multiplayer. No, the only way to play Mario Kart World Free Roam with your friends is if you both have a Nintendo Switch 2 and you both have a copy of the game. You can't do it otherwise. There is no split-screen mode. But what about free roam as a mode? Is it at least fun by yourself? No. No, it's not really. Look, I thought there was so much that they could do with this concept, and I mean, I've been saying for years that I think a new Mario Kart maybe should do something big and bold, maybe try to have a story mode, or try to have a big world like this. If this was done the right way, they could have done so many cool things with it. They could have created a big world that just feels like it's bustling with life and full of surprises. They could have had, if not explicitly a story mode, they could have at least had, you know, missions, you know, fun stuff to do, maybe even bosses like there is in Mario Kart DS, for example. Shocking to me that they haven't revisited that idea since DS. No, it's just a giant empty sandbox world that you can drive around in. And yeah, I'll admit, for like the first 40 minutes, when you're just exploring, you know, what can you do in this game that you couldn't do before, it's kind of, you know, it's a little bit interesting. You'll have a few laughs, you'll have a bit of fun, but it wears out real quick. By the time you've been playing for about an hour, the novelty is completely gone. I mean, completely gone. There's pretty much nothing to do. The only collectible is the foods, which unlock these costumes, which honestly does nothing for me. I'm not into that sort of thing. And the closest thing to having missions in the game is these P-switches that you can find littered around the world, which is just so uninspired, and you hit one and it spawns some mission that isn't really fun. Like, none of the P-switch missions are fun, and you don't get anything for doing them, so it's like, what's the point? It just spawns a chore for you to do, basically. Oh, also, there is no 200cc in this game. Like, not, you have to do something to unlock it. No, it's just not in the game. Also, this isn't necessarily specific to Mario Kart World, but I feel like I have to say it and get it off my chest. Kevin Afghani is not working as Mario for me. For those who don't know, that's the new voice actor for Super Mario. The old one resigned a little while ago. And for what it's worth, I don't mean this as a slight towards the guy. He seems like a super sweet and grateful guy, and for what it's worth, I think he absolutely nails everyone else. Luigi, Wario, Waluigi, he does those voices flawlessly. I have no complaints with him as those characters. But Mario, he just doesn't sound like Mario, I don't think. Like, to the point where it's distracting. It takes away from the game for me, because every time Mario talks or makes a noise or a sound, it's distracting. I think that's not what Mario sounds like. It sounds like a bad impersonation. Like, it sounds like bootleg Mario. Have you ever played, like, a mobile game that was based off of a movie that had a celebrity in it or something, and obviously because a celebrity isn't doing something like that, they had to pay some voice actor to try and do a bad impersonation of that celebrity? That's what Mario sounds like in this game. I would definitely say that overall, 8 Deluxe is a far better game, in my opinion. I think that aesthetically, mechanically, in terms of visuals, in terms of course design, even the music, I think that all of those things are better in 8 Deluxe than it is in this, especially if you have the Booster Course Pass, which I do. There is nothing about this game that makes it remotely worth the price, let alone worth replacing 8 Deluxe with. I honestly think that 8 Deluxe overall is still a better game than this. You want to know pretty much everything you need to know. I'm not really the biggest Mario Kart person. I'll admit, I play it with friends. I don't play it by myself. I'm much more into the Mario platforming games. But my friend Colin, who was with me all day yesterday, who enjoyed the Switch 2 launch with me, he is big into Mario Kart. I mean, he has played every game, and he plays it super obsessively and strategically and tries to find out the metas and whatnot. I don't even understand it. I just play casually. That he's been waiting years for a new Mario Kart game. I mean, we all have, really. At some point during our visit yesterday, we stopped playing this game. We went on eBay, and we bought Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart Wii. And then we spent the rest of our visit watching videos about those games. Because imagining playing those games again was more exciting to us than playing the brand new one that I dropped way too much money on. That should tell you pretty much what you need to know about the quality of this game. And again, I can't stress this enough. I really, really wanted to like this game. I mean, I really, really did. I had high hopes for it. I thought the trailer made it look great. I thought that, you know, the rail riding and the wall riding looked so cool. I thought, wow, that, you know, it looks like they're implementing like a platforming element to it. You know, a bit of a more involved gameplay element to it. No, not really. Those are things you can do, yes, but barely, and not really for long. It's just kind of something that happens sometimes, maybe, if you can pull it off. There's very few opportunities to do it, and even when you can do it, it lasts a few seconds and then it's over. It's not really that exciting, unfortunately. So yeah, to sum up, the racing is not as good as the last game. The free roam is locked to one person only. Free roam is also boring. The fun factor just isn't there. The game doesn't feel like Mario. Mario doesn't really feel like himself, if I'm being honest with you. There's nothing about it that really feels new from the last game. There's nothing to find, there's nothing to collect, there's nothing to do. It's just not really very fun. And as for the Switch 2 itself, man, I really have a difficult time being excited about this thing at all, considering just how bland and unimpressive it is. You know, I'm calling my video aggressively lame because that's the best way to describe it. It's aggressively lame. Lame is the best word for it. The box is lame, the UI is lame, the new game is lame, the launch lineup is certainly lame, controller's lame, the feature set's lame, all of it is just painfully lame. Let me tell you something, if this was half the price, and I mean this sincerely, if you took the amount of money I spent on this and slashed it exactly down the middle right in half, I would still tell you that it wasn't worth what I paid for it. I would still be telling you that it was pathetic and that it was lame and that it was too expensive for what it was. If it was half of what it costs. This is not worth it at all. If you're considering buying a Switch 2, don't. Just don't. Especially if you already have a Switch 1. Oh my goodness, do not get this thing. It is such a waste of money. And again, I say that as an obvious Nintendo fanboy who really badly wanted to like this thing and vouch for it. As a Switch 2, it barely even feels like it's a new console. And as a Switch 1, if you're buying it for that reason, if you're buying it because, oh well, it's backwards compatible with Switch 1 games, no, it's not very good at that either. I will not be doing a system transfer or anything like that. I will certainly not be getting rid of my Nintendo Switch 1. And usually I do that with backwards compatible consoles. Like, I have no GameCube, but I have a Wii. I have no DS, but I have a 3DS. I have no Game Boy Color or original Game Boy. I just have a GBA. Because generally speaking, if I can use one console to do multiple things, I will do that. But that is not going to be the case with this thing. I far prefer using the original Switch. It's more comfortable, it controls better, it functions better. And you know what, for all the problems I have about the Switch, because I could complain for hours to you about the Switch was a very good console for a very good amount of its lifespan. You know, and especially at first, when that WADA DNA was still injected in it, the Nintendo Switch was actually pretty great. I love how the Switch was going for like the first half of it or so. Super Mario Odyssey is still a fantastic game. And as a matter of fact, the thing I'm most excited to do with my new Nintendo Switch 2 is replay Super Mario Odyssey on it. Now, credit where credit is due. There is one thing, exactly one thing that I actually like about the Switch 2. There's one thing that I have to say that's actually good, and that is that you can connect Switch 1 controllers to it. I'm serious, I didn't think that was going to be something that they do. Some time ago, I got like 3 of these, you know, generic AliExpress Pro controllers for my Switch 1, and I just did that so that, you know, I could play multiplayer games with people. And I can connect these controllers to my Switch 2 just fine. It actually just lets me connect it to the Switch 2 the same way you connect it to the Switch 1. That's cool. That's a neat pro-consumer move, because it means that, you know, you can use your old controllers. You don't have to drop a bunch of money on new ones just to play stuff with your friends. That's actually a good feature, and I do want to mention that because it's one of the few positive things that I have to say about my experience with the Switch 2. I like that you can connect the old controllers to it. It's a real shame that it didn't really amount to much because, again, the new Mario Kart game doesn't actually let you play free roam in multiplayer anyway, so the only thing I could really do after connecting my old controller to the Switch 2 was play more races, which got boring fast. To sum up, to TLDR it a little bit, the Nintendo Switch 2, it's oversized, it's uncomfortable, it's certainly overpriced, like laughably overpriced. It's cheaply made, its Wi-Fi range is shockingly short, especially for a console that practically demands you be connected to the internet at all times. Its backwards compatibility is not only unreliable, but also annoying and difficult to use. It's so incredibly bland and lacking in any sort of new direction with its UI, with its feature set, anything of the sort, that half the time I forget it's even a new console because it really doesn't feel like a new console at all. And the new Mario Kart World game feels off-brand and underwhelming. Oh, and Mario Kart World is the only launch game that's actually new and not just an extravagantly more expensive release of a game that you can get cheaper somewhere else. Listen, it's one thing to reach a point as a company where you've stagnated, where everything you're doing is sort of bland and uninspired. It's one thing to start price gouging and charging way, way more than anybody can even afford, let alone is willing to spend. But both at once? This thing is doomed. I don't think that they can get away with doing this for very long. Either the quality is going to have to change drastically, the price is going to have to drop drastically, or you're going to watch them slowly die on this hill, which is probably the most likely, unfortunately. So that's my piece on the Switch 2. That's my first impressions on it. Thank you for watching this, and I hope it helps you if you've been considering buying a Switch 2. I hope it helps you to save your money and get something better instead. Bye now.